Welcome back to the United Taste of America podcast from iHeart, the podcast all about the culinary history of America as told through each of our 50 states. I am your host, Rick K. Jones, and today you may notice something a little different. If you've watched the first 13 episodes on our 13 original colonies, you may have noticed that I alternate colors each week, red, white, and blue in honor of America. And I've done that throughout. I will be doing that throughout the series. But today I'm making a difference because today we're in our first state that was not part of the 13 original colonies. We're in our 14th state, and it is the Green Mountain state of Vermont. And so today you find me in green. As I mentioned, the previous episodes have been all about those 13 colonies that broke away from Great Britain to form the United States. But Vermont is the next state that we add. Why is it called the Green Mountain State? Well, it's actually named for soldiers. The Green Mountain Boys that were led by a guy named Ethan Allen, who fought against the British in the Revolutionary War. A lot of you may know Ethan Allen because of furniture. There's a famous line of furniture called Ethan Allen Furniture. But before he was a furniture maker, he was a general, and he led the Green Mountain Boys in the Revolutionary War. Vermont was a state that was first explored by the French and then became actually part of French Canada until what? The end of the French and Indians War, when it became part of Great Britain. And Vermont was a British territory as part of the New Hampshire colony. Well, if that's not enough, then King George decides he's going to give that land, that colony, to New York. And so that area was fraught with peril. No one knew, are we part of French Canada? Are we part of New Hampshire? Are we part of New York? Created a lot of consternation, and in many cases created a lot of violence. After the Revolutionary War, Vermont actually was the independent state or the independent country of Vermont, and finally became a U.S. state in 1791. Now, after the Civil War, a large number of immigrants settled in Vermont, including a lot of Irish, Scottish, and Italian immigrants, and many were stonecutters. They came to work in the granite industry, or they came to work in what? The clothing mills. We've talked about New England and all the great mills and the mill towns. And again, Vermont was a great mill town, was a great mill state because they had what? Running water. Vermont is full of lots and lots of rivers with flowing water. That flowing water could power paddle wheels, water wheels, to be able to create power for the cotton or wool mills, the clothing mills in Vermont. And then in the 20th century, a lot of French Canadians that were really being persecuted in Canada because they spoke French. See, it happened up there too, just like it happened here with so many with blacks and Italians and others. There was great persecution in Canada. French Canadians, a lot of them said, to heck with it, I'm going south, and they settled in Vermont. And so a lot of the culture of Vermont is very French-oriented. The only president that was actually born in Vermont is Calvin Coolidge. He was the 30th president of the United States. He was born in Plymouth Notch, Vermont. But you don't know him much from being Vermont because he soon moved to Massachusetts, where he was governor, later vice president, and then became, as I mentioned, the 30th president of the United States. Today, Vermont's considered one of the more progressive or liberal states. After all, it's the home of Senator Bernie Sanders. They're very much in a small community. They're very liberal in their thinking about things like marijuana or things like socialism or things like government support and those kinds of things. It is the second smallest state in population, and it has the smallest state capital in Montpelier, and it has the smallest large city in Burlington. And so Vermont really is a state of lots and lots of very small towns, but there's nothing small about the beauty. and the scenery in one of our most beautiful states in the Union. Because of that, you have a number of outdoor activities that go on regularly in Vermont, and that leads to what? Tourism. It's one of the first states that promoted skiing. You may remember The Sound of Music, the story of the Von Trapp family from Austria that escaped across the mountains to Switzerland and escaped the Nazis. Well, guess what they did from Switzerland? They came to the United States, and they came to Stowe, Vermont, and they actually built a ski resort there in Stowe, and started the ski industry. They continued to travel around the country as a singing group, but they were known for establishing the skiing industry in the United States in Stowe, Vermont. A good place to begin with the iconic foods of Vermont would be dairy products. And one of the most famous dairy products in all of Vermont is Ben & Jerry's ice cream. In 1978, a couple of friends, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, took a $5 correspondence course from Penn State, spent $5 on a correspondence course in 1978 to learn how to make ice cream. You may remember in our first episode of United Taste of America, we talked about the great state of Delaware and Jim Mitchell, who actually went to Penn State and got a degree in making ice cream. Well, these guys spent $5 on a correspondence course, and then with the help of a lot of friends and some family, they pulled together $12,000, and they opened an ice cream shop in a gas station in Burlington, and they weren't having much success. So they said, we got nothing else to lose. We've made all this ice cream. Nobody's coming in and buying the ice cream. Let's have free ice cream day because we got to get rid of the ice cream. And they did, and people came and tasted it and loved it, and the rest is history. Ben & Jerry's is now owned by Unilever. You may have read recently that one of the founders has left Unilever because of political reasons. They wanted to do a flavor to honor Gaza, and the political folks at Unilever said, nah, we're not going to do that. And one of them got mad and left. Vermont's also home of one of the most unusual dishes that you can find naturally in the wilds. It's called fiddleheads. These are spring ferns, and you cook them, you saute them, or in many cases you cream them like you would cream spinach or saute spinach. And they're really, really good. Fiddleheads is a great dish that you can only find in the spring. And if you find them, they're free. They're famous here for gravy fries. It's kind of the Vermont version of a poutine. It's French fries with turkey gravy. Again, it's that French-Canadian influence. They're known as a dairy state for great cheeses in Vermont, white cheddar cheese and other artisanal cheeses. They grow a lot of apples, and so they make apple donuts. They make apple pies, apple ciders in Vermont. They have the latest corn of the year, late corn, because they have winter so long that they don't start growing the corn. And so the corn is harvested usually in October. And so they're very famous in late summer, early fall for a thing called corn chowder. They're also famous for their civic groups or church groups or fire departments doing fall chicken pie dinners. You know, we talked about in New Hampshire, they did fish fries or they did Yankee pot roast dinners. Well, in Vermont, they do fall chicken pie dinners. Here's what you get. You get chicken pie, mashed potatoes, coleslaw, winter squash, cranberry sauce, and then two kinds of desserts, both apple crisp and pumpkin pie, all for one price. Really, really good. But what are they really known for in Vermont? When I say Vermont, what food comes to mind? Maple syrup. They grow more maple syrup. They harvest more maple syrup from the natural maple trees there. The settlers learned how to do that from the Native Americans. The Native Americans had been doing it for centuries before the white man ever showed up in Vermont. But today, They have great maple syrup that makes things like maple cream pies, maple baked beans, maple ice cream, sugar snow. Think about sugar snow. Sugar snow is freshly fallen snow, put in a cup, and then you drizzle it with that fresh maple syrup. Eat it like a snow cone. Really, really good dish. But we found a place that does something with maple syrup more unique than any place I've ever seen in my life. We found a diner in Burlington that makes an unusual French toast sandwich that you smother in that wonderful maple syrup. It's Handy's Lunch in Burlington. It's actually a landmark on the corner of Maple. How about that? Maple and South Champlain Streets in Burlington. If you've watched the show Man versus Food, at one point the guy showed up to try to eat this dish that we're going to talk about unsuccessfully, I will tell you, because this dish is a monster. When you have a chance, I want you to look at the vignette, part of our vignette with our podcast series, where we actually go to Handy's Lunch and have Earl Handy make this famous his famous French toast sandwiches that includes maple syrup that is made just for them by another big ski family that I think is a really interesting story. So how did it all begin? Well, there was a guy that immigrated from Lebanon at the turn of the last century. His name was Earl Handy and his wife Flora, and they came first. And again, they came from Lebanon, and he worked in the ice business. And you think, wait a minute, Lebanon's in the desert. But it turns out that he was from a mountainous region in Lebanon where there was used to cold weather and used to trying to make ice. And he came and worked in the ice business. And then after a while, he moved to Burlington, and they opened a place that was really a little tiny grocery store, but they served some lunch sandwiches. And so they called this place Handy's Lunch. Now, when they opened it back in 1945, the diner was not quite the Handy's that you have today. Today, they serve both breakfast and lunch. But at that point, they were selling, snacks and, soft drinks and, cigarettes and a bunch of stuff like that. And where do they live? They live next door. So it's a little house here. They live next door. Well, they had a son. And in 1958, while his parents were on vacation, their son, Robert E. Handy, said, we're going to quit being a grocery store. And the reason he did it was a lot of people would come get grocery items and ask for them to be on credit. Put it on my tab. I'll pay you on payday. Nobody does that in a restaurant. You're paying cash. And he got tired of chasing people down for their bills. So while his parents are on vacation in Florida, he basically guts the whole place. He puts in a counter, and he becomes basically a full-time restaurant. Now, the counter is a horseshoe counter that you'll see in our vignette. It's still there today from 1958. Well, his parents get home, and they're furious with him, and they fire him for one night. The next morning, they wake him up and say, you screwed this up. You fix it. And he does. And it becomes very, very successful. Today, his son, the third generation, Earl, owns and runs the place. Now, in Vermont, you're part of New England, so who do you pull for in baseball? Of course, you pull for the Boston Red Sox. Not Earl. Earl is a Yankee fan behind enemy lines. And the diner is an homage to great Yankee players with a lot of Yankee paraphernalia and is a safe haven for those other closeted Yankee fans in New England. They make these most unusual French toast sandwiches. So the bread is French toast, and then it's covered in maple syrup. So you can make a French toast sandwich with one layer or two layers or three layers or four layers or five layers or the Mac Daddy of all, the Green Knight, a 6-layer sandwich. Now, The 6-layer sandwiches has what? 6 pieces of French toast. Each French toast uses 1 egg. That's 6 eggs. Then they fry 6 more eggs, 12 eggs. Then they put 6 different kinds of meats: corned beef, steak, sausage, ham, bacon, 6 different Canadian bacon, 6 different meats. And oh, by the way, let's go ahead and put 6 slices of American cheese on there too. It's a monster. Now, they got smaller versions, and they're all covered with this maple syrup that is made by a famous ski family from Stowe. And when you watch the vignette, you'll hear all about that story and how that came apart. My pal Earl is a character. He supports the local high school football team. His kids go to the same school he went to, that his dad went to. Handy's Lunch is a throwback. It is old school. It's a throwback place with great, great character. They make these amazing Vermont maple syrup sandwiches. Who knew? Well, Earl knew. It's Handy's Lunch in Burlington, Vermont. But there's more to eat in Vermont, and here's my 3 from me. One of the things they're famous for in Vermont are blueberries. They grow an enormous amount of blueberries, and so they make great blueberry pancakes. And some of the best blueberry pancakes I've ever had are at a place called Martha's in Coventry, Vermont. Martha's, another little diner, does breakfast, every kind of breakfast you could think of, but you want the blueberry pancakes because they're so good. We talked about that smallest capital, state capital. It's in Montpelier. That's where the University of Vermont is also located. I think if the university wasn't there, it'd be even smaller. Interestingly, in that town, there are dozens, and I mean dozens, of Thai restaurants. I don't know if there's a Thai population there that came to school there or why, but there's a bunch of Thai restaurants, and there's a wonderful one called Willow Wan's Kitchen. And folks, it is authentic as you can be. All the raw materials coming from Thailand, and they make amazing Thai food. So if you're anywhere near Montpelier on the road with Rick, you need to go eat at this wonderful Thai restaurant. And then we mentioned the great ski resorts up near Stowe. And there's a restaurant in Stowe, which is the original Hen of the Wood restaurant in a little town called Waterbury, right near Stowe. Hen of the Woods. They were doing farm to table before, anybody was doing it. It's farm to table with fine dining. Here's what you want. Whatever you're going to order as your entree, and they got a bunch of great entrees, this is the 2 appetizers you want. They make a mushroom toast with wild mushrooms, and they make this amazing country pate on wonderful bread. Those are the 2 go-tos there. So that's our 3 from me from the great state of Vermont. Our musical playlist is really fun. We start with the classic Moonlight in Vermont by Frank Sinatra. Trevor Hall recorded a great song called The Green Mountain State. There's a band called Joan of Arc with a song called Vermont Girl. We've got the Vermont song by The Breakfast. And finally, a song about Vermont called Divided Sky from the famous jam band Fish. So that's our show for the day. Next week is all about the Bluegrass State, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we'll see you then on United Taste of America.